Welcome back. Episode number 6 of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour here on KSDJ 90.7. With Austin Sanger, I'm Brent Bowen. We are happy to keep this show going for you throughout the rest of the semester, hopefully the rest of the year as well. Today we're going to recap this past week in South Dakota State athletics. It was an exciting one as the fall sports teams all doing very well. The basketball team's getting off to a great start with the season. We'll recap those. We'll also preview this upcoming week, another big week. Opener for basketball at First Bank and Trust Arena, all that and a lot more. We'll also get a conversation with Mesa Byam with the South Dakota State women's basketball team as they're getting their season underway, and then our hottest takes from the national sports scene. So we'll start out by recapping last week's football game, Austin, last week, and the Jacks taking care of business.
They did take care of business. They controlled the game from start to finish and ended up beating Murray State 52-6. Brent, what are your thoughts on how the Jacks played in this game?
Yeah, I mean, they kind of did what they needed to do in this game. Obviously, Murray State's not good at all. They're 1-8, 0-6 in the league. But these are the games that you try and go out there and you just do the little things right. You work on things that you need to work on, and I felt like they did that. I mean, as a team, 343 rushing yards, and the quarterbacks looked sharp. I mean, again, it's easy to look sharp against a defense like that. Offense could have had 600 yards, but they kneeled the clock out at the end. I mean, really, Murray State, just penalties destroying them, 12 penalties for 108 yards. There were times in that game where Murray State didn't look that awful. Like, they'd string together a good series, and then the flag would come. So that's what makes a really bad team. And the Jacks did what they needed to do, win 52-6 at home. You're now 7-2 overall, 4-1 in the league. Got a couple of tough road games to end the season at North Dakota and at Missouri State, with a home game against Southern sandwiched in between there. But I mean, you go out there and win the games you need to win. Now, if you go 3-0, you're going to be a top 4 seed. If you go 2-1, you're going to be a top 8 seed and a bypass the first round. So the team's still sitting in a pretty good spot. South Dakota State volleyball team, a couple of wins this week to improve to 22-0 in the season, 11-0 in the Summit League. An impressive one Thursday night at Omaha. The Jacks winning 4 over the Mavericks. Omaha got off to a quick start in the first set, but an 11-0 run with Rachel Weber at the service line led the Jacks to a set 1 win. Then Omaha bounced back and really punched the Jackrabbits in the mouth, winning 25-12 in set 2. But just a great response by South Dakota State in sets 3 and 4 to close it out on the road. And now really the league is in the palm of South Dakota State's hand this season. I mean, you're 2 games up at the loss column on Omaha. You've got plenty of room to breathe, and this is a team that hasn't lost a match all season. You look at the upcoming schedule, they've got a lot of winnable games before South Dakota. But that all started with the impressive win over Omaha. The Jacks hitting 230 as a team, 7 blocks as a team, and just a very balanced attack throughout the weekend, but especially in that Omaha game. And then in Kansas City, the Jacks sweeping the Roos. It's a Kansas City team. They won the regular season title last year. This tournament's in Kansas City because the Roos were the number 1 seed in the Summit League tournament last year. And the Roos are 4-18, 2-9 in the league. They're not even going to make the tournament, even though they're hosting the thing. It's been a rough year for Kirsty Posey down in Kansas City. Jacks Saturday against Kansas City, only 3 team blocks. That was a season low. Some people may look at that stat and be a little concerned, but you also have to consider the fact Kansas City was playing very conservative in that game. A lot of tips. They weren't swinging hard very often. They were really trying to work around that South Dakota State block, really limiting the Jacks' opportunities to pick up blocks. But I mean, the Jacks swung it efficiently, 350, including 406 in the second set, 467 in the third. So the Jacks were taking advantage of those free balls and finding the floor with these. So an easy sweep for South Dakota State. And Austin, our very own Sylvie Guntz, has continued her excellent season and was awarded with it this month.
Yeah, Sylvie's been playing amazing this season, and she got the recognition she deserved. This month, she got the Summit League Player of the Month.
Yes, Guntz is, I think, in the driver's seat right now to be the Summit League Summit League Player of the Year, rather. It was kind of a 2-horse race between Guntz and Shetnin, but really over the last couple of weeks, I think Guntz has emerged as the clear front runner with her heroic performance against South Dakota. Was very good against Denver, and I found the stat the other day, but she's led the team in kills in every single match but one. Sydney Shetland had like 17 kills in one match earlier this season. I might have been the first Bank and Trust Arena opener against Kansas City. Nevertheless, one game, Sylvie Sgunts has led the team in kills in every match except for one. Quite impressive. I mean, Sgunts just does it all the way around. I mean, she leads the team in digs, leads the team in kills. She's a top attacker, top passer. She's serves very well. She's the only Jackrabbit that plays all the way around, and she's just a very versatile player. And Shetland is too, because she can find the floor. She's efficient. She can block. So she's great on both ends as well. But, I mean, Sgunts has just that. Sgunts, in my opinion, has that advantage right now. Obviously, both tremendous players will both be first-team all-leaguers and are probably the two best players in the league, at least playing like it this year. But it seems as if Sgunts has the early edge to winning the Summit League Player of the Year. But once again, things can change as we get closer to the end of the year. Talk a little Jackrabbit soccer. Jackrabbits a thrilling 2-1 victory over South Dakota in the Summit League quarterfinals last Friday. South Dakota took the game's first lead early in the second half, and the Coyotes kept battling and keeping that holding that 1-0 lead. But then finally, Catherine Jones in the 86th minute came through and delivered the equalizer for South Dakota State. And then in overtime, neither team scored in the first 10 minutes, but just 14 seconds into the second overtime frame, Casey Manding with the golden goal on a free kick from Mars, almost midfield, knocks it home, her second goal of the season. It looked like initially that Bulky near the net might have made contact with the header, but it did not, and it scooted right past the keeper and the left back for South Dakota, and the Jackrabbits move on with a thrilling victory. I mean, the Jacks really outplayed the Coyotes, outshot the Coyotes 30-6, 11-1 corner advantage. It was a physical game, 25 combined fouls, but the Jackrabbits showing why they were the better team. In a rivalry game, it's never going to be easy, especially in the postseason. They call it survive and advance for a reason. Jackrabbit soccer just did just that to move on to the semifinals. So Jackrabbit soccer, they'll be playing in Fargo next week. We'll preview that for you on the next segment. And Austin, you were down in cross country for an exciting weekend for the cross country program in Vermilion.
Yeah, down in Vermilion, it was a good environment. A lot of fans were down there, and both the men and women took care of business. They both won first place, and the men kept the streak going, 9 consecutive Summit League titles. The men had 4 of the top 6 runners, and then also the women had 6 of the top 13 runners in both races.
Yeah, so a great weekend for cross country. I mean, you win both the Summit League titles, and the men have been dominant in the past, and now the women getting in on the action this season. As you mentioned, 6 of the top 13 runners. Good season for each program, and it ends with a title, and now the two teams most runners will compete in distance for the track and field season this upcoming winter. Speaking of track and field, there's lots of events at the Sanford Jackrabbit Athletic Complex this winter, including the Summit League Indoor Track and Field Championships in late February, early March. Move on and talk a little basketball now. Hard to believe it's already basketball season. Here we are in the first full week of November. We'll start with the men's team. What a huge win it was for the men's basketball program Monday against McNeese State. I don't think at the time of the game a lot of people realized how good McNeese State actually was. I mean, we look back on it post-game. I think now more and more people are continuing to realize how good this McNeese State team is. And if I'm wrong, then I guess I'm wrong. But Jackson 80-73 win over McNeese State. I mean, you look down the box score for South Dakota State, and it's all their leading scorers are all newcomers or freshmen. Joe Seiler leads the team with 18 points scored, redshirt freshman, playing his first collegiate game. Oscar Clough was huge, 14 points, 14 rebounds. Is a veteran, but it was his first game as a Jackrabbit, and he's going to be their best player this season. Owen Larson was unbelievable, 14 points, 5 of 11 shooting, 4 of 9 from beyond the arc, true freshman out of Esterville, Iowa. Then you had Stoney Hadnot. He was also incredible, the freshman out of Houston, Texas, 12 points, and also had 9 rebounds, was great off the bench, was just great off the drive, knocked down a big 3 in the corner. Going back to Owen Larson, he had the most impressive performance by far, because Larson in 34 minutes did not turn the ball over one time, which against that McNeese State team is so impressive, because McNeese State, they were picking up full court all game, and they were really just trying to disrupt this Jackrabbit offense, get inside those passing lanes, and the poise from Owen Larson to not turn the ball over once and knocked down 4 triples, including the game-winning 3 in the corner. It was an incredible performance. And honestly, I don't even know if he was going to start going into the season. Isaac Lindsey, the Wisconsin transfer, it was probably his job at that starting point guard position, but he's hurt. Owen Larson steps in, and now he's going to make Coach Hendo make an awfully tough choice to bench him when Lindsey comes back. Obviously, there's still plenty of games to play before Lindsey comes back. We don't know how long he's going to be out for, but what a performance it was for Larson. And the Jackrabbit men beat a McNeese State team who was deep and experienced, added multiple players in the portal that made big contributions at Power 5 schools throughout the past few seasons. And this was a Cowboy team. They were receiving votes in the preseason AP poll. They're led by Will Wade, who had so much success at LSU. Got into a little trouble, but McNeese State hires him. They were a 12 seed in the tournament last year, winning 30 games, as I just mentioned. This was a heck of a team and a heck of a win at the Sanford Pentagon for the men's basketball team. You had all the young guys didn't play like young guys, really playing like veterans. It was awesome to see. Guys were very poised and fearless, and they had plenty of opportunities in this game to kind of collapse when McNeese State would drain a couple of threes in a row, but they just didn't. They just kept competing, and a win like that could be huge come March for the NCAA tournament if the Jags were fortunate enough to make it again. Really could be the difference from jumping up an entire seed line. But it was not only a big day for the men's basketball team, the women's basketball team also with a great start to their season.
Yeah, women's basketball was down in Houston, Texas, playing Rice this week, and it was a big comeback for the Jacks. They were down 13 going into the fourth, and they came back to win that game. Some of the key contributors in that game was Haley Timmer, who hit that game-winning shot in the final seconds of the fourth quarter. She had 16 points and showed that she's a starter, and coming back from injury, she's looking like herself again. But then you also have the freshman, Katie Vasika. She started rolling in the second half, which led the Jacks to have a pretty good run to come back 13. But then you also have players like Paige and Brooklyn, who had some big plays late in the fourth. Brooklyn ended up with having 17 points. Paige had 12. And it was a key game to show how good this team could be when they're all rolling.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a game where the team easily could have folded. You're down 13 going into the fourth quarter. Really encouraging to see. Obviously, Haley Timmer knocking down 2 big threes in the fourth quarter, including the big one at the end. Brooklyn Meyer, Paige Meyer, 2 players that have been here before, and they making timely plays down the stretch on both ends of the floor. And then, yeah, Vasika, I thought she shot them back into the game, really. Had a big 3 in the fourth quarter, 12 points in her first collegiate game. Played 25 minutes, very well could be a starter when it's all said and done towards the end of the season. She's that talented and showed it in the season opener. But really, it was kind of a game that the Jacks needed to get. You've got to, first of all, Rice didn't have their best player, so that really would have helped the Owls. But Rice didn't have their best player, and just with the upcoming schedule that you've got coming up, you've got Creighton, Wisconsin, and Duke as your next 3 games. All of them at home, by the way. So 2 of them against ranked teams. So should be some great crowds for those games. Encourage you to show up to First Bank and Trust Arena for these contests. Wisconsin's the team who we should have beat last year over in Madison. The Badgers score a late bucket. Wisconsin really a low-tier Big Ten team. And with Wisconsin coming to Brookings, you'd hope the Jacks can get them this year. But Duke is ranked 11th in the country. Creighton's 21st. Those will be 2 tough games. And should be 2 great atmospheres at First Bank and Trust Arena. Not only that, but you have games against Georgia Tech and Oregon. 2 more Power 4 programs out in Hawaii. And then you're at Texas, who's one of the best programs in the country. So 6 power programs upcoming in this non-conference slate. That was a big one to get to open the season. But really, it was just encouraging to see the combination of the experienced veterans and then the talented freshmen stepping up and coming through in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game down in Houston. So we recapped this last week in Jackrabbit Athletics, and what's one thing that you noticed? All wins! All wins. Things are unbelievable right now. I mean, football is still one of the best teams in the FCS. Volleyball is the only undefeated team in Division I and have an RPI in the top 30 right now. Look incredible. Soccer, another 12-win season for them. It's unfortunately, soccer's gets swept under the radar a little bit because you've got volleyball making all this noise. and then football is doing their thing too. So soccer, it feels like it's kind of getting swept under the rug a little bit, unfortunately. But they're still having a pretty good season. Look to repeat as Summit League tournament champions, and then cross country going out there winning a couple of titles, and then basketball, each big one to start the season. So great way to begin crossover season. Look to continue the success through the upcoming weeks. And coming up on the next segment of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, we'll preview this upcoming week in South Dakota State Athletics. A big home opening doubleheader for the basketball programs, and then football looking to go on the road and pick up a win. Volleyball back at home as well. We'll preview all those and more coming up here on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, KSTJ 90.7. Welcome back to the Jackrabbit Sports Hour here on KSTJ 90.7. Austin Sanger, Brent Bowen are your co-hosts, and we are going to preview this upcoming week in South Dakota State Athletics. Another big one here on crossover season, starting out on the football field.
Yep, the football team this week is at North Dakota this Saturday for a 1 p.m. kick. Brent, what will this Jacks team have to do to beat this North Dakota team?
Well, it's a North Dakota team that has lost their last 2 games against average to below average teams in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. So I think if it's a Jackrabbit team that goes in there and sticks to their identity, they're going to be just fine. If they're going to go in there and run the football the way they can, the Fighting Hawks have not stopped the run very well this season, then the Jackrabbits will be just fine. If the defense is going to go out there and ball out like they continue to have all season and stay disciplined, they are going to be just fine. This is a North Dakota team that's going to be desperate for a win, and as we've learned over the years, a desperate Bubba Schweigert team is always a dangerous football team. This North Dakota team is desperate at that after their 2-game losing streak. They're now 5-4 this season. Backs are really against the wall. The Fighting Hawks have us, South Dakota, and Illinois State to end the regular season. They'll need to go at minimum 2-1 in that stretch if they want to make the postseason this year. Even then, maybe 3-0 depending on the field. They've got their backs up against the wall. They really need this game this weekend. And really, it's a North Dakota team that always plays well at home. They're 5-0 at home this season, 4-0 on the road. It's really just baffling because it's more than this season that's been an issue. It's been an issue in years past. They have always been a much better football team at home than they have on the road. And the Jacks have even struggled at times to play in Grand Forks over the past couple of years. I mean, in 2022, the Jacks went there and fell down 21-7, still won the game 49-35, but UND had them on the ropes there a little bit in the first quarter. I mean, let's look at the last 6 seasons for North Dakota. They're 29-3 at home and 7-24 on the road. You know how absurd that is? I mean, that's just crazy. Their last few home losses, they lost to Sac State in the playoffs last year, the Jacks in 2022, and the Bison in 2021. They beat North Dakota State there last year. I mean, the Jacks also, going back to my earlier point, they fell down 21-7 in 2022. Also in the spring of 2021, they lost. That was for a couple of years Gronowski's only regular season loss against an FCS opponent, and obviously you have the Sam Houston State game in the national championship as well when he played just one series, but Gronowski did lose to North Dakota in Grand Forks in the spring of 2021, so the Jacks haven't necessarily played their best the last couple of times there. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes, but it's a 1 o'clock kick on Saturday. The Alara Center, just a weird place to play. You're indoors. It feels like you're just kind of in a tin shed, and it's a decent venue for football, don't get me wrong, but it's an odd venue at that, and the Jacks look to take care of business on the road this weekend and improve to 8-2. Jackrabbit Volleyball has a pair of home matches this week. South Dakota State will host St. Thomas tonight at 7 o'clock at First Bank and Trust Arena. Jackrabbits 22-0 on the season, and they are in full control of the number 1 seed in the Summit League, which would mean the Jacks would host the Summit League volleyball tournament next season at First Bank and Trust Arena. And the Jacks earlier this season, a 4-set win over St. Thomas in St. Paul. The Jacks had a ton of attack errors, 10 of them in the first set. That's why the Tommies won. SDSU, though, bounced back and won the next 3 sets. And SDSU swept North Dakota State up in Fargo. It's a sluggish first set again, but the Jacks found a way to win and then took care of business easily in sets 2 and 3. So, but you look at the standings right now, the Jacks at 1, the Tommies and the Bison are tied for the number 4 seed. So right now the Tommies would be the 4, the Bison would be the 5. And the Jacks would take on one of those two teams in the Summit League semifinals. So we very well could be getting a preview of a possible semifinal game. Because, I mean, you look above and below them in the standings. South Dakota has plenty of breathing room above those two teams. Denver has a long ways to work to catch those two teams. So it really seems like the Tommies and the Bison are going to be the Tommies and the Bison will be the 4 and 5 seeds respectively, and the Jacks are more than likely going to be the 1. So SDSU will probably play one of these two teams in the semifinals. So we'll get another taste of what these two matchups are like. Jackrabbit soccer taking on Denver today at noon in Fargo. The Jacks fell 2-1 to DU a couple of weeks ago at home. Really a game where the Pioneers outclassed the Jackrabbits. DU, in my opinion, is the best team in the league. I really think these are the best two teams in the league going at it today. I mean, NDSU's the 1 seed. They're hosting this thing, but Denver already beat North Dakota State. SDSU, I think, outplayed the Bison this year, but the Jacks lost the game. The Bison kind of getting the lucky second bounce and scored a goal off it. The Jacks severely outshot the Bison in that game. I think if those two teams played again, the Jacks would win, even though they'd have to play in Fargo again. So I think the Jacks and the Bison are the best two teams in the league, and I would view this as kind of the championship game in my opinion. Obviously, North Dakota State or Oral Roberts are still definitely capable of beating either of these two teams, but I think Denver and SDSU are the best two teams in the league. They will go at it in the semifinals, then the Bison and the Golden Eagles of Oral Roberts will have the other game. So soccer, Summit League tournament for them, and basketball, a couple of big games on Friday.
Yeah, some very big games for both basketball teams. There's a doubleheader on Friday. The women host number 21 Creighton at 6 o'clock. That will be a big game for the Jacks. Then the men will, after the women's game, the men will host Long Beach State. And Long Beach State made the NCAA tourney last year when the Jacks were the 15 seed.
Yeah, so the Jacks were a 15 seed. Long Beach State was as well. I remember Long Beach State last year, they had just a bizarre incident where they fired their head coach before the conference tournament, kind of assuming that things weren't going to end the way they wanted to, and they had maybe a little bit of a disappointing season, and they fired him. Dan Munson was his name. He was there for a long time. They fire him. Long Beach State then went on to win the Big West tournament and made it to the NCAA tournament. So here was Dan Munson coaching Long Beach State as a fired head coach. So kind of just a crazy turn of events that happened for Long Beach State that season. Now their head coach Chris Acker, who I believe came from San Diego State, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be a couple of entertaining matchups at First Bank and Trust Arena tomorrow night, as the women will have Creighton, a top 25 team, and the men will have Long Beach State in the battle of tournament teams from a season ago. You won't want to miss it, and what should be an excellent night and atmosphere at First Bank and Trust Arena. Jackrabbit Wrestling, they open their highly anticipated season in Fargo in the Bison Open on Saturday. Some wrestlers will also compete in the Dakota Wesleyan Open in Mitchell, also taking place on Saturday. Jackrabbit Wrestling program, though, ranked 12th in the country to start the year in all of Division I. That's this upcoming week in South Dakota State athletics, and coming up next on the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, you will hear my conversation with Mesa Byam of the South Dakota State women's basketball team. Also, you'll get our hottest takes from the national sports scene. That's all coming up through the upcoming moments as you are listening to the Jackrabbit Sports Hour here on KSTJ 90.7. The Jackrabbit Sports Hour continues on KSTJ 90.7. Brent Bowen with Mesa Byam of the South Dakota State women's basketball team, senior out of Melrose, Wisconsin. Mesa, this is your 5th year wearing the yellow and blue. Just what have you enjoyed most about being a Jackrabbit?
So far I've obviously loved it here at SDSU. I've got to experience so many different things, and being able to be a part of Jackrabbit Nation is incredible. Ever since I came here as a freshman, Brookings has felt like home. I loved the small town feel, but yeah, a big university, and even though we're mid-major, we get to experience the best of the best. So being able to experience that and great competition, it's been so much fun.
Take me back a few years to when you were committing to play here. You're from a small town in western Wisconsin. How in the heck did you find your way to South Dakota State and Brookings?
Honestly, I had never really heard of SDSU until I got a pamphlet in the mail and started talking to some of the coaches. I was looking at a lot of schools in Wisconsin. They're all really big towns and stuff like that. I came to Brookings, and like I said before, it just felt like home. Small town, but people always said, you go to the grocery store and people knew you, and I just loved that aspect of it, getting to know people more personally, and I could tell the girls were really close and like sisters, and I just wanted to be a part of that.
And what are you currently pursuing academically?
I'm nursing.
A couple days ago, you got your first opportunity to perform inside of First Bank and Trust Arena, albeit an exhibition game. You get the real one next week. Just how did it feel to play in front of the home fans inside of a new arena?
It was so cool. All of us were really excited about the new arena. It's something we've all been looking forward to, and being able to play in there with all the fans, it's super exciting. We're really excited for some big games coming up because we know how the arena, it's probably going to feel like the fans are right on top of us, but that's so awesome, and we're really excited for that.
You're kind of the one that takes control of the social media mini mic.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
I'm not really sure. I know Lindsay Thunick used to do it, and I guess I just always loved it. Shelby asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, oh, heck yeah. So I've kind of just taken it on my wing, and I think I'll have to pass it down as a tradition, but I don't know who's going to do it next.
well, who on the team, on average, gives the best answer for the mini mic?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. It's tough. Sometimes I give people a heads up because I get nervous on what they want to say. So I guess it kind of depends on what the question is. But we have a lot of big personalities on our team. So it's fun to ask those questions.
Let's switch gears a little bit here. What are some of your hobbies outside of basketball and school in your very limited time, I'm sure?
Yeah, I'm really busy. But I love hanging out with the team. You would think with all the time we spend together, we'd want some alone time. But honestly, we spend a lot of time off the court with each other. I'm roommates with 3 of them, and then the other 4 upperclassmen are just a few doors down, so we spend a lot of time together. We watch movies. We make a lot of food, try to at least. I like shopping, getting my nails done, all the usual stuff.
Tell me a little bit more about your hometown of Melrose, Wisconsin. Where exactly is it, and then what did you enjoy most about growing up there?
It's like 45 minutes away from La Crosse, so I normally just say I'm from around La Crosse because many people don't know, obviously, where my hometown is. Really small town, like I said, about 500 people. I graduated with like 48 people, so small until I came here. Then I realized it wasn't as small as people from South Dakota. But wasn't a whole lot to do, so we made the most out of it, just hanging out with my close friends. Would take the usual drive to La Crosse often, and I didn't think it was that far until now. I realized it's weird not having all the things to do coming to Brookings. But yeah, I loved, I know every single person in town, who their family is, where they live, so I really liked growing up in a small town. It gave me a lot of great people, and I still keep in touch with a lot of them, and all of them are still watching me to this day, obviously remember me from high school. And so that's really cool, and I loved growing up there.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
I mean, the obvious. It goes so fast. I remember coming in. It was nice because I knew I was having 5 years while I came in with COVID. So right from the beginning, I knew I had 5 years. I just remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, that's so far. That's so many years. But now I'm in a 5th year, and I'm looking at all the lasts that I have, and it's just crazy how truly fast it goes. But I can say I think I've made the most out of it, and it's really put a perspective on that for me.
Feel that as well. Season opener on Monday.
Yeah.
You're on the road, but then you return home to play in front of the home crowd against Creighton. Just kind of how excited are you to get this season underway with a lot of high expectations?
Yeah. Obviously, we know we have a lot of talent this year, and we have high expectations, but we've just been talking about taking it day by day, and we have to earn everything, and we're not given anything. So that starts with our game, and a big one against Creighton, so we're excited to go out there.
Coming up next, Austin is back as we talk national sports. Welcome back to the Jackrabbit Sports Hour on KSTJ 90.7. Brent Bowen and Austin Sanger with you, giving you our hottest takes here on the national sports scene. We'll start by talking a little NFL. The trade deadline has come and it has gone. A couple of big trades, but really no superstars moved on the block like we have seen in years past.
Yeah, like you said, no big superstars were traded, but there have been some pretty good trades that happened. The Lions found a replacement for losing Hutchinson. They traded for Zadarius Smith, so that could be maybe a good pickup.
That's a couple of revenge games for him, too. He's going to get chances to play the Vikings and the Packers.
So could possibly be a good pickup for the Lions. Then a little bit of a surprise was the Saints trade away Marshawn Lattimore to the Commanders.
I think the Saints are in such a bad situation, cap space wise, that they needed to move off some of these older veterans that they got to pay a lot. I think they're finally realizing that they need to go towards a rebuild.
Yeah, I think they're trying to sell to prepare for the future.
And the crazy part is, I watched the Saints in Week 5 earlier this year. Or was it Week 4? No, I think it was Week 4. They were 2-1 playing in Atlanta against the Falcons, and that was a big game because the Saints started off 2-0. They looked pretty good. Their offense was high flying. That win over the Cowboys at the time looked really good. Obviously, the Cowboys now kind of stink, but that was a big game in the NFC South. And Younghoe Koo, with the Falcons down 1, drilled a 54-yard field goal to push the Saints to 2-2, and now they've lost five games in a row after that to fall to 2-7. Really wonder where that season goes for the Saints. Obviously, they had a ton of injuries, but how could that season have turned for the Saints if they had found a way to win that game?
Yeah,
I don't know. You got any more big trades that you want to share?
The only other one is Khalil Herbert goes to the Bengals.
Yeah, I guess the Bengals need a running back.
Yeah.
Zach Moss is out for the season. Although Chase Brown's been all right for them, but definitely want to add to that depth. The Bears are going to look to trade off some pieces as well. I mean, and the Bears, by the way, they really seem to be trending downwards. I mean, they were 4-2. And then they lose in the Hail Mary, and things were just ugly last week in Arizona. I don't know if you saw the one clip, but DJ Moore walked off the sideline mid-play with Caleb Williams rolling to his left. He scrambles back to the right. The play went on for another 5-10 seconds, and DJ Moore is sitting on the bench. Not a good look.
Yeah, maybe I think there's got to be something going on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. If you're having your star receiver start doing that.
Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think the players are done with Matt Eberflus, the head coach.
That could be
because I think he was on the hot seat last year, but the defense played so well for the Bears at the end of the season that okay, Eberflus is a defensive guy. This is a lot of his doing here, so we don't want to mess up this defense. They bring in, honestly, they made a pretty not great hire at offensive coordinator, guy from the Seahawks that all Seahawk fans hated. And the Bears took him. And the offense, I mean, they've got players, but they just haven't really clicked this season. Honestly, I don't think a lot of it, especially as of late, is Caleb Williams' fault. I think it's the offensive line's not great. The receivers, I mean, O'Dunzee's been all right, but DJ Moore, the effort's been lackluster. Keenan Allen has not been very good this season either. But so I don't think a lot. I think Caleb Williams has actually played okay this season for a rookie quarterback. He should be playing okay as the number 1 overall pick, but he was getting some blame early, but I think lately it's been more the other guys around him. But the Bears right now, I mean, they're 4-4. They got a tough schedule coming up, honestly. Would not surprise me if they're a 6-11, 7-10 team. I think the best they go is 8-9, and that's being very generous. The Chiefs already have 8 wins. They're 8-0, beat the Buccaneers in overtime. This is something that I want to ask you. The Buccaneers score a touchdown in the final moments, but don't go for 2. They kick the extra point, force overtime, lose the toss, the Chiefs receive, and go down and win the game. What are your thoughts on the overtime rules in the NFL? Should they change in the regular season?
I do think they should change because it's just an unfair advantage if you win a coin toss and you can drive down the field and that's it.
And it always seems like somehow the Chiefs always win the coin toss in overtime. I know it's just luck of the draw, but it's so odd. It seems like they always win the coin toss. I mean, you at this point, like, you've got to learn your lesson, right? You go for 2 in the win against the Chiefs. You don't even want to give them a chance because every time they touch the ball first in overtime, they are going to find a way to go and score a touchdown and win the game. That's just who they are. They're just so situationally good that they may not play their best in regulation, but they're gonna be clicking come overtime. I mean, I'm glad that the NFL has changed the rules for the playoffs. At least that's the situation for the playoffs, that both teams get an opportunity to touch the ball.
I do think they should implement that to the regular season, though.
Regular season also, I love the college overtime rules, where you start on the 25-yard
Yep.
line. Maybe the NFL wouldn't want to start on the 25 just because kickers are so good, but you could start on the 35.
Yeah.
If a team or the 40, like if a team doesn't pick up one first, probably the 35 would be the spot that you'd start at. Because like even if a team doesn't pick up one first down, you're in field goal range, but it's not an automatic for your kicker, which I think is what it should be. If you're at the 25 and you don't pick up a first down, you're still probably going to get a field goal of under 40 yards, which for almost all NFL kickers is automatic. So, but I would agree. I think the overtime rules do need to be changed. I think it's just something that, I mean, the Chiefs have abused, and rightfully so. I mean, they don't make the rules, and they're going out there and they're performing. You still have to drive down the field and score a touchdown, but the Chiefs always, they seem to be doing a really good job at taking advantage of these overtime rules. But I do think that each team should get one opportunity to touch the ball in overtime.
Yeah, I do think it will probably be a new talking point for the rest of the season and probably next season until they change the rule.
But I'll tell you what team I think looks like the best team in the NFL right now, and that's the Detroit Lions. I mean, even without Aiden Hutchinson, this team is balling on all sides of the field. The offense is so efficient. They've had like more passing touchdowns than incompletions in the past like 6 weeks or something. That's like a ridiculous stat. Ben Johnson's going to get paid so much money next year to be a head coach, and I pray that a team hires him this year. I don't know how he didn't get hired last year. But the defense is playing well, even without Aiden Hutchinson. That there's the Za'Darius Smith addition is only going to help that team. It won't hurt them. But the Lions look really good right now. It's going to be tough for the Vikings to go out there and win the NFC North.
Yeah. The Lions are scary with how they have been playing, especially their offense, and just what you said, how efficient they've been playing.
I mean, the best offensive line in the league. Goff fits perfectly in that system. Gibbs and Montgomery are the best. They feed off each other, and they're the best running back duo in the league just because they supplement each other so well.
Yep.
And then Dallas Cowboys, they're kind of cooked.
Yeah, they lost Dak. He's out for a couple weeks.
Lost Dak. The record's not good. The Commanders and Eagles are really good, and it's not looking good for Jerry Jones there in Big D. But the rough season up ahead for the Cowboys. That NFC East streak is going to continue, like 20-something years in a row with a different winner in the NFC East. The Cowboys won it last year, and they're not going to win it this year.
No, there's no way.
The Vikings bounced back and beat the Colts on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it was good to see another win for the Vikings. Sam Darnold played pretty well in primetime. He did have those 2 picks. I think he had a fumble too.
He did, but it was another, like, it could have easily, they threw a flag, easily could have been called for a high hit, but they picked it up. That was the only score in the first half.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Vikings looked pretty good. They did just play the Colts, so it's not like a Lions team that we just beat.
And I mean, if you want to break that game down even further, yeah, it's an 8-point game, but if the Vikings played clean, they win that game by 30. If you look at the Colts' 13 points, I mean, 7 of them came off the defensive touchdown, which probably could have been a flag, but either way, the Vikings gifted them those points. Their first field goal of the second half came after a Darnold interception.
Mm-hmm.
Colts didn't even pick up a first down, but they hit the field goal.
Yep.
So those were 3 more free points. And then the final 3 points of the game, where there was 2 minutes left in a 2-score game, and the Vikings kind of let the Colts just drive up the field, make sure to keep them in bounds. The Colts eventually kick a field goal with 30 seconds left to make it a 1-score game. But I mean, really, the Vikings offense was moving all day.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the first half, like every drive, they were taking it into Indianapolis territory, just couldn't finish. Darnold had the interception in the red zone. Something's not right with Will Reichert, obviously, because he's on IR now. They picked up a new kicker.
I did not
is
know
that breaking news to you?
I did not know
that.
that.
Yeah, they placed him on IR yesterday,
Dang.
He's on IR. I think it's a quad injury, and he missed the 53-yarder. It looked awkward coming off his kick, but it's a 53-yarder. It's not a guarantee.
He
But
missed another
when he
one,
misses the 31-yarder, it's like, oh, and he's limping a little bit. And he was like, oh, something might be a little wrong here. And then the sideline reporter came on the air and showed him having some wrap around his quad. So he's on IR. He's going to miss at least the next 4 games. And the Vikings signed a new kicker, John Parker Romo, I think is his name. He's never kicked in the NFL. Vikings kicker curse continues.
Yeah,
Tell me about it. I mean, they finally got a good kicker, and he can't stay healthy, for gosh sakes.
Yeah, I completely missed that. That is breaking news for me. But yeah, the Vikings kicker curse is just something. The start of the season, I'm like, oh, we finally got our guy.
He didn't miss a kick till this week.
Yeah, he's making all those kicks, and dang, and then now he's on it IR.
But yeah, going back to my earlier point, I mean, they are moving the ball up and down the field very well. I mean, just couldn't finish drives in the first half. Finally started finishing those drives in the second half, and as a result, 3 second-half touchdowns. Vikings a 21-13 win. They're 6-2, still in that number 5 seed of the NFC playoff picture as we are halfway about through the regular season. But next week, the Vikings will take on the Jaguars. The Jaguars, they've gotten a little life over the past couple of weeks. They almost beat the Packers a couple of weeks ago, almost beat the Eagles this week, beat the Patriots over in London. They've looked a lot better over the last few weeks, and that game for the Vikings in Jacksonville doesn't look so easy anymore.
In other news, talking about how the Saints were a little bit selling earlier, they just fired their head coach this week. How will that affect them for the rest of the year, and who will be the new intern head coach?
Well, I don't really think it matters who's the new interim coach. Their season's down the drain anyways. They're trying to tank, but it's the right move. I don't think Dennis Allen's their guy in the future. They're probably going to want to bring in an offensive head coach because that's how everybody's going nowadays in the NFL. Hey, maybe Ben Johnson's their guy. But I think the Saints at this point of the season, they need to tank, try and get a top 3 pick in the draft, and try and secure a franchise quarterback because Derek Carr's getting old. Spencer Rattler's not that guy. Their backup, Hayner, I think is his last name. He's not all that either. So I think Dennis Allen being fired is the right move. I think he's lost this locker room 7 losses in a row is unacceptable for this team. I think they're talented enough. They're definitely talented enough to beat the Panthers, for gosh sakes. I mean, the Panthers have won 2 games this season, and they've gotten a coach fired after each game. So,
yeah, a lot of Saints players were apologizing to Saints fans after the game, saying they should have not lost that game.
Cam Jordan.
Like Cam Jordan, yeah. he tweeted saying, "I'm sorry, Saints fans. Shouldn't have lost that game to the Panthers.
We just lost to the Panthers."
Yeah.
Is his exact words, which is. But on the other side of it, good for Bryce Young. I mean, he's played better since he came back from off the bench, and it's good to see him have a smile on his face. I mean, he's a talented player. He's a good guy, and we definitely wish for the best for him down the road. He's definitely one of those guys that you want to see succeed in the NFL. So good for him there to get a win, and hopefully he continues to play well throughout the season to prove that he's the guy in Carolina. So we'll talk a little NBA now. Still early in the season, only 7-8 games for most teams into the year. The Milwaukee Bucks, they're 1-6. Have looked awfully bad under Doc Rivers. We kind of talked about it last week with the Adrian Griffin and Doc Rivers deal. Still, Bucks can't figure it out under Doc Rivers. They've got the 2-headed monster of Doc Rivers and Darvin Ham. Whoever came up with that idea as a head coach and an associate head coach needs to be fired on the spot because, wow, Doc Rivers is holding on to that 08 ring with a super team that he had in Boston. How much of that was his coaching? Probably not much. And then Darvin Ham, we know how just not good he was in LA. So how that coaching duo exists, I have no idea. But the Bucks are paying for it because they're 1-6. But they're not the only team going through some things right now in the East. The Sixers had some big news break the other day.
Yeah, the Sixers lost their star player, Joel Embiid. He's got suspended for 3 games for shoving a reporter into a locker.
Yeah, Embiid's gotten a lot of hate over the last few months with his load management deal. And it was funny. There was a post that broke with the announcement of Embiid getting suspended, and one of the top comments on that post says, "No, the NBA should have made him play for 3 games because that'd be more of a punishment." That cracked me up for a solid 5 minutes. That was a great comment, and there's some truth to that as well because, oh my gosh, when's the last time he's played back-to-back games? It's been so long,
wow.
Other than the playoffs. But you're getting paid millions of dollars to go out there and put the ball in the hoop, and if you're going out and playing on a Friday night, or if you're not going out and playing on a Friday night, but for some reason you're healthy enough to play on the Saturday, it seems kind of suspicious. But I mean, the Sixers could be good this season once they get PG back, and if Embiid decides to play, and we know Maxi's a baller, so they've got one of the best big threes. But I mean, the East has not looked very good this season. Boston and Cleveland are 8-0, or Cleveland's 8-0, Boston's 7-1. Everyone else is 500 or below. The Heat are in third place at 3-3 as of Wednesday. But I mean, those are going to even out a little bit. We're still so early into the season. But the Warriors, we're looking out west. The Warriors have a little bit of life. They're 6-1. Buddy Hield's been good so far this season. The Suns are also 6-1. They're big three. They might have something cooking there after a full offseason. Something cooking that's like the guy from Family Guy, from the classic Peter Griffin. Corner three. Because if you've been following the Suns on their TikTok page, after like every win, they post like a bunch of corner threes with the Family Guy audio. It's kind of funny. You go give it a listen if you want to. But the Suns have been good to start this season. The Thunder look like a different beast as well. They're 7-0, and even without Isaiah Hartenstein, their coveted offseason acquisition, the Thunder are really good, and they're by far the best team in the West. We'll talk a little college football now, briefly. South Carolina, another upset win over Texas A&M, who was top 10. Texas A&M was rolling, hadn't lost a game since the opener. South Carolina blows them out. Nebraska, are they going to go 5-7 again? I mean, they were 5-1, went to Indiana, got blasted. Okay, you regroup, go to Columbus, you're winning in the fourth quarter, fall. Okay, you competed against Ohio State, one of the best teams in the country, lose by 4 on the road. Not worried. You just lost to UCLA at home. I mean, that was their best crack at a 6th win. They can still get it. They're at USC versus Wisconsin at Iowa. There's a world, though, where they lose all 3 of those games and they go 5-7 and miss out on another bowl game. That would be the funniest scenario possible. It's me with my family roots and ties. I still root for the Iowa Hawkeyes, not as much as I used to. Now with as much as I've been heavily involved with South Dakota State athletics, but I still root for the Hawkeyes. Usually, I'll turn on the game on my computer every Saturday, and I mean, whenever I converse with Nebraska fans, I try and tell them every single year, like, yeah, you guys on paper might have had a good offseason, but I'm not going to believe it till I see it. I'm not going to believe that you guys are going to do any better than 5-7 until I see it. I thought this would be the year where they win 7 games. They still can. Who knows if they will, but with Dylan Raiola coming in, but he hasn't been very good the last, really all of league play. He had a good start to the season, but hasn't been good since, and really, Nebraska was lucky to win the Colorado game. If those two teams played now, I'd take Colorado in a heartbeat. But early, Nebraska won easily, and now Nebraska has kind of regressed, and Colorado has continued to get better and better.
Wasn't Nebraska's quarterback just got hurt?
He might have. I think he did. He did.
Got hurt.
Yeah, I think he did get hurt last week against UCLA. But either he stuck through it and played through the pain, or a backup came in. I don't remember. But that's a good point. I do believe that I did see something now that Nebraska's quarterback got hurt. Talented kid, as a true freshman, has done great things for Nebraska this season, but has definitely not stepped up when they needed him to at most to be that superstar. The Big 12 is wide open right now. Kansas State and Iowa State lost to unranked teams this week. Really now the Big 12 is BYU's to lose. Big 12 could very well just get one team with a playoff now. Kansas State and Iowa State at 11-1. They'll play each other at the end of the season. One of them is going to go at least 11-1. If one of those two teams goes 11-1, then they might get in. It would be close, though. BYU, assuming they run the table and win the Big 12, they would get in as a top 4 seed. Indiana continues to impress. They just continue to pass the eye test as well, destroying Michigan State on the road, 47-10, 47 unanswered to win it. They will have Michigan this week at home, and then we'll be at Ohio State, which turns into a mammoth of a game. Even if Indiana's competitive in that game, the Hoosiers will be in a good spot to have a good seed in the college football playoff this year. Maybe not even just make it, but possibly host a game in the first round. Talk a little Ole Miss. They blew out Arkansas last weekend in Fayetteville, an Arkansas team that had actually been pretty good this season. And I'm telling you, nobody's going to want to see Ole Miss as an 11 or 12 seed in the CFP. Ole Miss a 12 seed right now, or has 2 losses right now, rather. They will need to beat Georgia, though, because I don't think a 3-loss Ole Miss team will get in. But if they beat Georgia, there's a good chance they get in as a 10, 11, or 12 seed, and no team is going to want to see themselves match up with the Rebels in the first round. Penn State, they lost their first game of the season. They continue to fall short in big games. They haven't beat Ohio State since 2016 on that legendary night at Beaver Stadium with the blocked field goal return for a touchdown. James Franklin just continues to fall short in the big games. Did it once again this weekend. The only TD for Penn State came off a pick 6 early. College hoops season underway. Gonzaga making a statement on opening day. They defeated Baylor by 38 points in Spokane. Dominated that game from start to finish. Gonzaga, a lot of experience returning from last year's team. Maybe this is finally the year where Gonzaga breaks the seal and takes home a national title. Zeke Mayo, that name sounds familiar, former Jackrabbit, 7 of 12 shooting with 5 threes on 19 points off the bench. For number 1 Kansas, they rolled over Howard in the season opener. The upset of the day in college basketball, one of the upsets of the day actually might have been the Jacks over McNeese State, but UCF, unranked out of the Big 12, defeats 13th ranked Texas A&M. Big upset win for Johnny Dawkins, much needed win for that program. Coming up on the next segment of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour, we will get you a couple of matchups to watch this week, and we'll wrap things up for episode number 6 as you are listening to the Jackrabbit Sports Hour on KSTJ 90.7. Welcome back one final time here on episode number 6 of the Jackrabbit Sports Hour. Austin Singer and Brent Bowen wrapping things up and giving you a couple of games to watch this week across the sports world, and starting out with a few games in the NFL.
Yeah, some of the more important games, in my opinion, of this week are going to be the Bengals versus Ravens. The Bengals are looking great nowadays. Joe Burrow's looking fantastic. The Ravens are a powerhouse of the team with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. That duo is going crazy this year. Then maybe a pretty good matchup, the Broncos versus Chiefs. Broncos have been playing well. The Chiefs are still undefeated. Can the Broncos be their first defeat? Then we got Vikings versus Jaguars. Gonna be a good game. Jaguars are looking a little better than the start of the year. Then we got Lions versus Texans. A good NFC team with the Lions and a really good AFC team with the Texans. The Texans are going to want some revenge. They just lost to the Jets. I think the Texans will come out swinging against this Lion team.
Yeah, that pass game really needs to get going for the Texans. They don't have Diggs for the year. Getting Nico Collins back would be big. That'll be on Sunday Night Football too, so it should be a good one to watch. A couple of games in the college world that I'll hit on quick. Georgia's taking on Ole Miss. Ole Miss needs to win this game for the playoff. Georgia looking to stay in control, or I guess they're just kind of getting back in the SEC race, looking to stay towards the top of the SEC race. Just one loss for the Bulldogs this season at Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, they're at LSU in a top 15 matchup, prime time, really in what is an elimination game for the college football playoff. Each team has 2 losses. If a team falls to one of those 2 teams will fall to 3 losses, and whichever one does is more than likely eliminated from the CFP. Another exciting week coming up in the sports world. You got all those national games as well as some Jackrabbit games, a couple of Jackrabbit volleyball home matches, Summit League tournament time, and the semis for Jackrabbit soccer would play in the championship later in the week. If they were to win Thursday, then Jackrabbit football on the road at North Dakota. Jackrabbit basketball also the home opening doubleheader as well. That'll do it for episode number 6. It was fun recapping what was an exciting week in Jackrabbit athletics. Every program picking up wins. The cross-country team winning Summit League men and women. The volleyball team, a couple of wins, including a big one at Omaha. The soccer team, a thrilling win against South Dakota. The football team taking care of business against Murray State. The basketball team, a couple of big wins to open the season. Everybody doing great things around the department right now. And we look forward to recapping this upcoming week, next week, for episode number 7. So, us and Sanger and Brent Bowen signing off, and we will see you next week.